So here we are, at the final video for the year 2016. This is where, in days of yore, I would usually engage in a rumination summation of sorts. A bare bones boiled down, which just so happens to be the title of this very exposition. So what to make of everything that's happened up until this point? What can we derive from all the campaigns, exercises, and experiments awareness has run with material product? What was the moral of the story? Was there a lesson learned? And where does it go from here? This is where I'd like to make an indication to solipsism and the emergence of a potent truth about the nature of reality that cannot be stopped from coming to the surface. And next year I'm going to delve deeper into the subject of solipsism and explore the many various subtle nuances of the philosophy, as what is insinuated from this inference has resounding impact about the truth of the fundamental foundation of the reality of awareness. And next year I'm going to delve deeper into the subject of solipsism and explore the many various subtle nuances of the philosophy, as what is insinuated from this inference has a resounding impact about the truth of the fundamental foundation of the reality of awareness. But wait a minute. Isn't the truth up for debate? He says it's X and you say it's Y. Maybe one of you is right and one of you is wrong. Maybe you are both right or maybe you are both wrong. It's an issue that is currently in contention, no? Is it now? Well now. That which receives a stream of experience isn't up for debate as in X or Y, and requires no proof as it is self-evident. Therefore, it isn't a personalized truth relative to a particular subject. Only the many various possible explanations, narratives, and attributions for what the content of the experiences mean may differ, of which some will be true, or all will be true, or none will be true, due to overlooking the aforementioned fundamental foundation, via focusing on the perceivables, while completely overlooking awareness. This is what is meant by becoming deluded by illusion. And this isn't a matter of lucidity, rather simply the result of overthinking and being ignorant of the dream. Awareness isn't a perceptible. Awareness is aware of perception. This is an invincible solipsistic axiom that cannot be denied. So awareness comes before any perceiving takes place. Since you are aware, you can give context to these things that you are calling a person, a perception, a thinking mind, a philosophy, a religion, and a world, which are of the same inventory. Asking me how do I know if everything within that inventory is illusion comes from lucidity. Awareness of illusion isn't an intellectual theory, whereas all these various ideologies, philosophies, sciences, and religions are only concerning themselves within the context of the illusion. And this is where the utility of lucidity comes into play, and the implications of solipsism come to the forefront. And before you even go there, let it be preemptively affirmed. As far as I know, or anyone else can know for that matter, other people could very well be zombie non-player characters, and that isn't necessarily an issue for me at all. But honestly, this point of dispute is a bit of a played-out banality, as solipsism itself isn't much concerned with relegating other people into zombies. This argument representing more a bone of contention by the opponents of solipsism, which is understandable, as it is one of the few rebuttals available against the position, which is a bit pathetic, sorry to say, as it is a very weak attempt at refutation, having no real point of itself, simply acting as an obstruction of doubt, designed to delay and impede the illumination of the truth from getting uncovered. In short, solipsism is the cognitive recognition that awareness is all that really can be known to exist. If one sees this empirically, then it's already understood that so-called people don't exist. Meaning, of course, in addition to others, even the inclusion of the identification of one's own self, aka the ego, doesn't exist, as all personas are equally illusory content, and that the true factor at the root of all these instrumentations is awareness, the source of origin that all sentience shares in common, the fundamental foundation. This cannot be denied by the solipsist, whether it be of his own ego or another ego. The collective unconscious of a universal mind is seen to be an elementary premise that is in accord with an enlightened description of reality. That is, mind awareness is the only thing one can know and verify to be true without a doubt. You cannot deny your awareness, if in fact you are aware. And if you wish to deny your awareness, then what is it exactly that is making this denial? And of course, I know why there is so much circumvention of these matters, as to open oneself up to this truth will eventually lead to the inevitable disassociation from the identification with the imagined self. And this is the bone I am here to pick with you today. Let go of your attachments. It's unbecoming. It's desperate. It's codependent. For, you see, unfortunately for you, despite what you thought, you are not a gender. You are not a sexuality. You are not a race. You are not an ideology. Despite coming from nothing and heading towards nothing, now that you are in between, you actually think you stand for something. Yeah. I know you thought yourself to be some type of righteous proponent of a worthy cause, but I got news for you. If you find yourself in the position of either condemning or defending any of these attributes, you still don't get it. The concept of physicality is just that. The ideological conclusion about a perceived end result of a purely mental facility. It's a misinterpretation. But this isn't an endorsement of theology, so don't make it even worse by bringing up God, the cliché deus ex failsafe of an awareness denier backed into a philosophical corner. This tendency representing the unrelenting drive to maintain delusion by lionizing falsehood. And that's the primary issue with the concept of a God. It casts the truth outwards towards the external. The truth isn't external to you. Nothing is external to the true self. But you must come to discern between the true self and its many facades, masquerades, and costumes. The concept of external, in and of itself, a complete falsity. The major stumbling block of which serves to impede the philosophical aspirant, until such time as this stumbling block can instead be realized as a stepping stone to the truth. And the truth has to be established through awareness of what is found to be true, by way of empirical experimentation. And God simply doesn't pass this simple prerequisite. I can't see how certainty can be established on any grounds concerning something that cannot be experienced, but yet nevertheless gets justified anyway on the basis of the idea that there are boundaries that prevent full knowledge. And while it's true that a human mind might have access to only a small percentage of all the available knowledge in the so-called universe, this fact isn't supportive evidence for a supreme deity. That isn't how knowledge is built. You cannot establish an unknown as a fact simply based on the fact that there is still a lot of unknown in the universe. You build knowledge on what is found to be true empirically, not on could-bes or might-bes. This tendency lacks the integrity of intellectual honesty. You can't prevail in philosophical discourse with blind faith as your premise. That awareness itself is an absolute certainty is self-evident. It isn't something that has to be taken with faith or accepted as a fact via intellectual theory. It's already the case firsthand. So you cannot conflate this truth with the certainty of a God. Nor can you hope to become enlightened through the accumulation of knowledge. And I know this is a bone of contention. This is the issue that always crops up when trying to use God or knowledge as a substitute for the truth. The prime motivation of which is because the truth is unsavory. The truth is impersonal and indifferent. And I'm so very sorry if this rubs you the wrong way, or leaves a sour taste in your mouth. But you need to get over it, and build up the strength and resolve required to move into enlightenment, and to accept the truth of the empty nature of your true self unconditionally. Which can be included to also mean every illusory manifested appearance, which are merely the reflections of the existential expressions of the true self. Don't make the mistake of digging yourself bone deep into delusion. If the indulgence into delusion is too deep, the resulting mean-spirited selfishness becomes a magnetic beacon for suffering and misfortune. And speaking of which, this is where I'd like to take a 180-degree turn and move the narrative of this video into an abrupt new direction. With the holidays now in full swing, with all our yearly celebrations, holiday cheer, and good tidings, I just wanted to raise the question of, why is kindness and goodwill only reserved to be officially exchanged once a year? It doesn't seem to make that much sense that for 11 months we mostly treat each other like shit, and then for 4 weeks in December we get warm, generous, and chummy. And sometimes even this kindness isn't shared openly, but only with a select few that we have deemed worthy. That's what makes a lot about the holidays seem so surreal, like forced, contrived merriment. I mean, don't get me wrong. On an existentialist tip, The Pollyanna can be fun to a couple of times a year deeply engorge oneself in extreme episodes of gluttony, binging and purging, staggering through the snowy streets, pushing and shoving in department stores, frazzled and wired from non-stop shop and spend sprees, with a massive influx of sugar, caffeine, tryptophan, marijuana, and alcohol coursing through our bloodstreams, ready to crash hard from sensory overload. But if you look at this tradition a bit more analytically, you can't help but to wonder how much of this holiday is really just marketing of merchandise consumption disguised as a holiday to stimulate the economy, and how much of this holiday is really about extending kindness, love, and brotherhood, helping out those that are less fortunate. What? Help and care for others? Ebenezer Scrooge says, bah humbug. You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. We all know of these famous stories. They are staged in the setting of Christmas, but I think they raise a good general question about the nature of so-called human beings that transcends any holiday. Which is, why are so many of you so mean-spirited? What has caused so many of you to become so bitter, so intolerant, so resentful, and so sadistic? A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed-up spirit dries up the bones. There is way too much hate, anger, bullying, and fighting going on in this world. You see it in your day-to-day personal lives. You see it on the internet. You see it on TV. You read and hear about it in your media feeds. Some of you are actively engaged in it as we speak. A cresting wave of superficial attribute mongering, a pervasive small-minded pettiness that holds grudges, delights in other people's sorrows, and rejoices over evil and falsehood. A cold-hearted hubris that seeks to plant a flag and draw lines in the sand along divisions of race, nationality, gender, sex, and religion. Seething resentments marked by toxic quantities of aversion, loathing, and paranoia. You can feel it in your bones. Sentiments that are very prevalent and palpable within the current cultural zeitgeist. The contemporary political climate of which is also certainly chock full of cynical mean-spiritedness, arguably the cause of most of it, which is primarily demonstrated by the vile expression of a litany of abuse, an insidious procession of nasty vitriol, a non-stop horrible spew of blaming, demonizing, scapegoating, shaming, and condemnation, all predicated on fear, insecurity, jealousy, separation, xenophobia, and otherization, aka non-self-acceptance. Huh? Yeah, I know. There's a difference, right? There's no way you are anyway interrelated to all these things that you hate. All these things you despise are outside of yourself, right? Nice try. It's wishful thinking. And irresponsible. So I hate to break it to you, but everything out there that you so adamantly abhor is a part of yourself that you have not yet accepted, and as such have therefore conveniently compartmentalized, so as to avoid dealing with it. Hence this continual practice of self-hatred ensues, which is sad and unfortunate. But you know it's true. So much harshness, so much adjudication, so much intolerance, a complete lack of mercy, forgiveness, and compassion, so ready and eager to deal out judgment, punishment, and death. It's getting to the point where I'm not all that sure that it's worth the energy employed to sustain it. Very soon, there's gonna come a point where that energy supply is gonna get cut off. And if you happen to be a leech on that blood pipeline, you're gonna get fucked. Nothing personal, it's purely business. There's a couple of old adages that are worth remembering. A society can be judged on how well it treats the least among them. And you can easily judge the character of a man by how he treats those who can do nothing for him. If the truth of these proverbs contain any wisdom, then the majority of people in the world are essentially scumbags. Why do we associate kindness, empathy, patience, and generosity with weakness? What has caused so many people to become so impatient, envious, boastful, proud, rude, belligerent, obstinate, and selfish? All of these make up the essence of mean-spiritedness. And make no bones about it, I think it's right about time to clean house. All around me, all I see is nothing but enormously bloated, overinflated ego balloons. As I stand among them, alone, pensive, with only a razor-sharp blade as my sole possession. Oh, Charlie, whatever should I do? Oh, whatever should I do?